What was once a bustling area filled with the sounds of life had now become silent, cloaked in an eerie shadow. Everything on the street, from cars to bicycles, had stopped. The people too seemed frozen, no longer moving with the usual energy that filled the city. One by one, people stepped out of their cars, abandoning their vehicles in the middle of the road. Traffic was piling up, but no one honked. No one shouted in frustration. Instead, they all stared in the same direction, their faces filled with disbelief and fear. Above them, an enormous gate hung in the air, so large it blocked out the sky. Its size was terrifying, reaching the height of a skyscraper. The people on the street, who had once been busy going about their lives, now stood in horror, unable to tear their eyes away from the gate. The usual sounds of the city were gone, replaced by an unsettling silence. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, as if the entire area had been taken over by an unseen force. The once lively heart of Tokyo had become still, leaving only fear and uncertainty in its place. The air seemed thick with anticipation as hunters gathered to discuss a pressing matter. Among them were some of Japan's most powerful guilds, including the Blades, Phantoms, Invincible Kings, and Snowy Mountains. It was rare for all the major guildmasters to be called together, a clear sign that something serious was unfolding. As the hunters whispered among themselves, they couldn't help but take notice when Sugimoto Reiji entered, accompanied by Hoshino, Kumamoto, and Tawata. Sugimoto, once the vice president of the Blade Guild, had now become its leader following the devastating losses during the Jeju Island raid. 7 of their strongest S-rank hunters, including the famed Goto Ryuji, had been lost during that battle. The hunters muttered about how the Blade Guild had been weakened by Matsumoto's dangerous plans and how their once dominant position among Japan's guilds seemed to be fading. Some even saw this as an opportunity to rise, thinking that with Goto gone, they had a chance to become Japan's strongest guild. As Sugimoto's group overheard the murmurs, they stopped in their tracks, glaring at the hunters. The tension was palpable. Hoshino's frustration was evident. Once no one would have dared to speak so boldly in front of them, but now, with Goto gone, these hunters were becoming more confident. Tawata, too, mentioned rumors of the Phantom Guild planning to merge with the Snowy Mountain Guild, a move that would give them 4 S-rank hunters, the same number as the Blades. Sugimoto, however, dismissed the idea that merging guilds would make them the strongest. He believed that no matter how many guilds combined forces, they would still not be able to rival the Blade Guild's strength. Inside the Prime Minister's residence, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The weight of the situation pressed heavily on everyone in the room. Frustrated and unable to control his temper, the Prime Minister slammed his fist on the table. He was furious, demanding to know why the Hunters Association hadn't provided any solutions yet. An S-rank gate had appeared in the heart of Tokyo, and the Prime Minister was growing increasingly worried. He wanted answers about what measures were being taken to prevent a dungeon break, knowing the catastrophic consequences that could follow. Matsumoto, trying to calm the room, explained that even S-rank hunters were not strong enough to deal with an S-rank gate. The national hunters were their best chance. However, the other guild leaders pointed out that the Prime Minister had gathered all of Japan's major guild masters together for this meeting, and it wasn't the time for obvious questions. They all knew what had happened during the Jeju Island raid, where the situation had spiraled out of control. Pessimism in the room wasn't helping. What was needed now was a clear plan of action. The suggestion to hire Thomas Andre, one of the world's strongest hunters, came up, but it was quickly dismissed, as the country lacked the funds to recruit someone of his caliber. Besides, with the sudden rise in the number of gates globally, most countries were struggling to send hunters to assist. The Prime Minister expressed doubt about how many hunters would be willing to face such a dangerous mission. The fear of tackling an S-rank gate loomed large over everyone. It was then that Sugimoto stepped in, stating with confidence that there was one hunter who would be willing to help as long as he was paid. This hunter was Yuri Orlov, a barrier specialist. Sugimoto declared his intention to hire Orlov for this mission, believing that his unique abilities could provide the key to dealing with the threat that the S-rank gate posed. As Jinyu drove smoothly back to the guild office, his mind was occupied with thoughts of his recent progress. He reflected on how quickly his skills had improved. Now at level 101, he marveled at the fact that he had obtained the key to the Kartanen Temple at level 100, and all of his job-specific skills had leveled up with his recent advancement. His curiosity grew as he wondered what new developments awaited him at level 102. While contemplating his growth, Jinwoo's thoughts shifted to Jinho, who was working hard as Vice Guild Master. It was clear to him that Jinho's motivation was a great asset to the guild, but Jinwoo decided they needed more people on their team. He made up his mind to begin recruiting as he exited the parking lot. At that moment, he spotted a familiar figure near the building. Cha Hae-in. She too noticed Jinwoo and, to his surprise, appeared startled. Without warning, she backed away and quickly turned to leave. Jinwoo, curious and slightly competitive, immediately reacted by using flash to sprint after her. Cha Hae-in froze when Jinwoo blocked her path. It puzzled him as to why she was avoiding him, and he questioned her intentions near his office. Embarrassed, Cha Hae-in explained quietly that she had left her car in his parking lot, reminding Jinwoo that they had used Shadow Exchange the last time they were together. Then Cha Hae-in hesitated before asking if Jinwoo was free. Inside her mind, a flurry of thoughts swirled: confusion about a photo Jinwoo had taken with Soo-hyun, jealousy and insecurity over why she, an S-rank hunter, hadn't been hired by him. Despite her internal turmoil, she managed to tell Jinwoo that she had a message for him from Min Byung-yu regarding his powers. This unexpected revelation changed Jinwoo's expression, and he suggested they continue their conversation upstairs. Once inside the office, Hae-in was surprised by the lack of people. Realizing that Jinwoo's Vice Guild Master was still out on business, her nerves heightened at the thought of being alone with him. Jinwoo, however, remained focused and asked Hae-in how Min Byung-yu had left a message for him. Hae-in then recounted a mysterious experience she had. She had heard a voice, and in that moment Byung-yu's shadow had appeared before her. His words were urgent, warning her to tell Jinwoo about the danger hidden within him. Byung-yu described feeling as though he had been revived to serve Jinwoo, but the most unsettling part was how content he felt in that servitude. His message ended with a warning about Jinwoo's overwhelming power, hinting at a terrifying truth about his abilities. Before Byung-yu could fully explain, a light had engulfed Hae-in, cutting off the message. His last words echoed in the emptiness, leaving Hae-in with a sense of foreboding about Jinwoo's true army. Jinwoo returned to his usual routine, raiding a dungeon alongside Jinho. As they worked, his mind wandered back to what Cha Hae-in had told him about his powers. He couldn't help but wonder if what she said was true. Regardless, Jinwoo knew that uncovering the source of his powers had now become more important than just getting stronger as a hunter. Meanwhile, Jinho was reminiscing about their past, commenting on how the dungeon reminded him of their earlier days raiding C-rank dungeons together. Jinwoo, distracted by his thoughts, reminded Jinho not to talk with his mouth full as he ate. Jinho suggested that Jinwoo could just let his soldiers handle everything while he took care of other business, given that they could move on their own. But Jinwoo knew he couldn't do that. He earned fewer experience points when he was too far away, and he couldn't always trust his soldiers to behave properly when he wasn't supervising. Just as Jinwoo was thinking about this, one of his shadow ants began devouring a magic beast, causing Jinho to react in disgust. Shifting the conversation, Jinho asked about Jinwoo's sister, Gina. Jinwoo explained that she was still recovering and needed rest. Thankfully, his most reliable shadow was watching over her, so he was confident that she was safe. Jinwoo then realized he should check up on her and used his shadow safe skill to do so. Closing his eyes, Jinwoo activated shared senses, allowing him to see what his shadows were seeing. Through the vision of Baru, who was stationed by his sister, Jinwoo observed that Gina was sound asleep, but something else caught his attention. Baru, the ant soldier, was watching a historical drama on TV, speaking in a manner that was overly formal and dramatic. Jinwoo chuckled inwardly, realizing that Baru had picked up this strange way of talking from watching too many dramas. With that settled, Jinwoo decided to check in on his mother as well. As he used his senses to observe others too, he suddenly heard the sound of water. At first he was confused, since it wasn't raining, but when he shifted his vision, his eyes flew open in shock. He had accidentally seen Cha Hae-in in the middle of a steamy bath. Quickly pulling himself out of the shared senses, Jinwoo's surprise was noticeable, and Jinho, catching his odd reaction, asked if he had dozed off for a moment. Jinwoo shook his head, dismissing it as nothing, though he couldn't help but feel slightly embarrassed. He briefly considered taking Cha Hae-in out for dinner as an apology for the awkward situation. Jinho, ever eager to stay updated, mentioned the latest news to Jinwoo. An S-rank gate had appeared in Shinjuku, and if it wasn't cleared within 3 days, there would be a dungeon break. Jinho added that Japan had been recruiting hunters from all over the world and asked if they had contacted Jinwoo about it. Jinwoo, already aware, confirmed that he had received a call but was still considering his options. He had more urgent matters on his mind, so the decision wasn't immediate. As he spoke, Jinyu summoned the black key from his inventory. It appeared in his hand with a soft hiss, labeled as the key to the Kartnun Temple. In deep thought, Jinyu reflected on the key's significance. It was an invitation from the system itself, and he couldn't help but wonder what answers awaited him in the temple. He had many questions about the system, his powers, and what it all truly meant. With only a day left before he could use the key, Jinyu felt certain that the truth would soon be revealed.